CLIC Connect. I'm your host, Craig Sullivan, and we're bringing you another leader. California National Hospitality and then some. So I'm really looking forward to today's show. But first, I would like to thank our production partners, Red Roof Franchising and Chicago Title National Commercial Services Group, California. Without them and without you, our audience, we wouldn't have a show. So please make sure that you call them if you're looking for a new brand, our friends at Red Roof. And if you need some help getting your real estate transactions closed, call our friends over at Chicago Title's National Commercial Services Group. Let them know that producer Danny and I sent you. They would love to hear from you and be glad to help you. And with that, we've got the one and only CJ Arlotta, CJ Media Solutions, podcaster, creator, host, so much more, joining the show for the first time. But you may remember him. He went into a dumpster fire with Glenn Hausman and I that we call Friday Night Audit, but it was really one of our funniest shows. It was great. So with that, CJ, welcome to CLIC Connect. How are you?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me, Craig. Appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. You know, after we did Friday Night Audit, I said, I got to get you on the show. So I really appreciate you making time, especially after the adult beverages and conversation of that
I guess
show.
I didn't do too bad then.
Not at all, my friend. So, CJ, let's get into this. Let's start out. Would you please tell the audience about yourself and your company and your podcast?
Sure. So, CJ Arlotta, managing member of CJ Media Solutions. We're a B2B PR firm in the hospitality space. We provide media relations services, crisis communication services, thought leadership services, and a little bit more. I am a PR consultant, of course, but I started out in the communications space, working in political campaigns, working for government officials. I moved on from that, became a journalist, covered several industries, including the tech space, healthcare, and ended up in hospitality. So in addition to moving on from being a journalist and going into the PR space, I also started my own podcast, the Crisis Averted podcast, which I have to say I haven't updated recently, Craig, but it's because I'm working on something new and I'm thinking about rebranding it and kind of taking it a different direction. So
there you go.
Yep.
That's part of what producer Danny and I do every time we take a break. It's like, how can we improve the show? How can we do something that's a little bit different?
Yeah.
Now,
and I enjoy it.
You don't know me. You don't know me very well, but she does. And she listens to my ideas. She goes, yeah, I don't think that one's so good.
Yeah. I mean, so the main theme of the podcast was, overcoming crisis. Of course, that's why I called it the Crisis Averted podcast.
Right.
But I wanted to kind of like open it up a little bit more and be able to interview anybody I want on any sort of topic. So stay tuned for that. Hopefully in the next couple of months or so, I'll be returning with a new podcast. So
look forward to it, my friend. You'll definitely have to let me know when it hits.
Absolutely.
I definitely want to tune in for that.
Thank you.
So let's talk about some of your clients. You're working with hoteliers, hotel management companies. You're working with brands, various other people within the hotel space. So how are you creating value for these clients?
Yeah, so primarily when it comes to working with the hotel companies I work with, I do a lot of media relations work. And that's probably the service most people think about when they think about public relations, right? So I'm always working with the press to help them increase coverage that way, increase visibility. When somebody picks up a publication or goes online, they'll see their name more and more often, and they're more likely to reach out to them. I typically am working with reporters, trying to get my clients placed in stories through earned media coverage. So, we're doing things like obviously putting together press releases, distributing those press releases to the media. But, we do more than just that. We are working with the press on an ongoing basis to see what they need. In my opinion, that base level of sending out press releases, that's kind of the base level and typical for, every PR firm. But I am working with the press day in, day out to try to figure out the resources they need, what stories they're working on. I may not have a client that fits their need, but I try to go out of my way to find sources for them, to establish that, continue that relationship, because it's about strengthening that relationship with the reporters. And then I work with my clients to sit down and figure out other stories that we can figure out that fits into the narrative that's out there in the hospitality space. So it's 3 different areas when it comes to the media relations side that I'm really
Right.
working with my clients to get placed in different publications. So
Well, and with your background being on that side of the fence at one point in time, being a journalist, being out there, not only offer that helping hand to them on behalf of your client or somebody else, that you're hoping to work with down the road, but you're understanding what they're going through, and that's got to make things a lot easier for both you and them.
yeah,
So, and I got to think it's got to be a lot more than a grand opening or reopening of a
right,
hotel, especially if you've got a group that you're working with that's very dynamic in a region.
right,
They're the 800-pound gorilla. They hotels in the area, and you're getting their development story out, their team expansion, and other things that are making them the leaders that they are. And I think that if you're not thinking about that, you should give CJ a call, and he can explain to you how valuable that is.
Yeah, well, it's that too, right? It's their news, but it's also the stories, like I mentioned before, that the reporters are working on, and try to get
Right.
the hospitality companies in those stories, because everybody loves, of course, being on the cover, and they love a story that's just about them and their news. But sometimes it's good to get in a bigger picture story. Maybe there's a cover story on a particular topic. It could be, labor's obviously a big issue right now, and maybe there's a cover story on labor, and maybe there are several companies quoted in there, and sometimes just that's just as good as getting your own article on some news for your company. So it's really trying to figure out the needs of the reporters and the needs of your clients.
Well, that, and I think one thing that we really need to touch base on and let the public know is that we are a viable part of the community. We do get involved with charity events that go right back into whatever area that we're in. Everybody jokes that California doesn't have seasons. Well, we do. We've got earthquake, flood, riot, awards, and now fire season as well. And we take in the people that have been victims of these fires. We take in the first responders that are out there fighting on the line when they need to come off. And we do a lot for our communities. And the hotel is really more beneficial than, say, a Class A office building. We're heavily involved with the community and support it. At least we try to.
And it's about getting those stories too, right? So
Right.
one thing I always like to do with my clients is I like to sit down with their executives. I say every month, but it really depends on their availability. But I like to sit down with executives and figure out what's going on at their company. What are they working on? What do they want to talking about? What do they want to talk about? What are some of the stories they can share? So that's a great example of where all those stories can tie into and get that news out there.
I agree, and I think that's something we need to do more and more of, and let people realize that we are a viable part of their community. Okay, let's talk about thought leadership. You're dealing with the leaders, you're helping them craft a narrative, and that's got to be the upside. But sometimes there's some crisis management that has to come through, and crisis communications. So let's kind of talk about both of those if we could for a couple of minutes, please.
So I guess I'll start with thought leadership, and that kind of ties into a little bit of that earned media coverage I was talking about before. But it's getting your executives out there on a variety of topics that they're open to speaking with. And when I sit down with these executives, I try to figure out what their strong points are, what they like to talk about. Maybe there are some topics that aren't being talked about in the industry that they would like to talk about. Sometimes I find I'll sit down with an executive, and within 15 minutes or so, there's something that I go, aha, that's something interesting that isn't being talked about in the industry. Maybe that's something we want to pitch around to reporters. But in addition to that, it's also getting those executives out there in the industry for opportunities, whether it's an interview opportunity like this, whether it's being on a webinar, sitting on a round table, being on a panel at a conference, or speaking opportunity. Those are some ways that you can really increase the visibility of your executives. And then, of course, I'll take the second that you asked about, crisis communications, and that's a tough one, because when a crisis happens, there's so much going on, right? And so one of the best things you can do is evaluate everything from the start and really put together a crisis communication plan, right? Take a look at what are potential crises within your industry, within your company. What can you expect? How can you prepare for that? Set up a crisis communications team, whether, and try to get somebody from your CEO, from operations and marketing and PR, your legal team, right? Get a group of people who know what their roles are when a crisis hits. And so it's really about that plan, having that plan ahead of time, so that when a crisis does occur, you can implement that plan.
And I think you're right on target with that too, my friend. Now, let's talk about it. A little bit of trends, because it seems like with a lot of the media outlets, national news, they kind of follow a trend. How, without giving away your secret sauce, how do you get them to notice your client, which is a huge value, and get them to maybe add another layer, to that discussion, that's beneficial to your clients?
Yeah. So speaking in the B2B space and the trade publication specifically, so for example, the hospitality space, one of the biggest assets you can have is those relationships in the industry, right? So every PR firm is going to tell you that they have connections, right? But the thing is that we all have those connections. Every PR firm, we have access to the same databases. We can access company websites, publication websites. We'll find emails, reporter emails. We can access all that. But the key is to really start out and starting those relationships with journalists in the industries, and then continuing to strengthen those relationships over time. As I stated before, really staying on top of the needs of the reporters, reaching out, being a resource. Don't always just show up and want something from them. They get bombarded with pitches in their inboxes all the time. So it starts with really having those relationships with reporters ahead of times, so they can really, when you send over a pitch, for example, or a press release, they're more inclined to open it than maybe pass on it, or delete it, or not even open it at all, right? That's really the biggest first step, I would say. But then it's also paying attention to the publications, paying attention to what they're reporting on, paying attention to what specific reporters are working on, because over time you'll start seeing that there are topics that all these reporters are working on, kind of the same topics over and over and over again. You can sit down with several journalists at a conference, and they'll probably want to talk about several of the same topics, asking the same questions over and over again. So those are I'd say the two biggest tips in trying to gain that earned media coverage.
Okay, so overthinking or gut instinct, what serves you best?
Overthinking or gut instinct? I would say gut instinct. Yeah.
Being in the moment, understanding the question, even though you may have heard it 5 or 6 different times within an hour space, and being able to add that other layer, that other nuance to give the reporter or whoever just a little bit something different. I think you're absolutely right about that.
Yeah.
How do you create the best value for your client?
I think it's about helping them see that ROI, right? For PR, because I think that's so difficult sometimes. And so one of the things I'm always trying to do is show them you know, where we started and where we are now, and show them all the different types of earned media coverage that we've acquired during the relationship. You know, it's funny because sometimes I'll speak with clients and you know, they won't tell me, for example, if they secured a new contract, or why they did that, or how it came about. But then other times I'll just be casually sitting with a client and they'll mention something to me like, oh, you know, we went to an investor meeting, and you know, we went to go pitch ourselves, and they basically told us to stop because they're like, oh, we know who you are. We see that you're killing it in industry right now. And they kind of smiled and laughed to themselves, right? Because that was part of one of the reasons, you know, that was the results of some of the earned media coverage that we were getting for them. So that's kind of a real life example that you can see working with a PR consultant in this space.
Nice. I love it. You got to feel good when you hear that.
Oh, I love it.
Like,
I always thought,
that's a job well done.
Right. Why didn't you tell me earlier? That was months ago. I don't understand.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, CJ, we're going to move on to our lightning round.
Okay.
Producer Danny's going to put 2 minutes on the clock.
Oh, no.
Word association, first thing that pops into your head. So here we go. Millennials.
Me.
Gen X, Y, and Z.
Interesting.
Stakeholders or shareholders?
Stakeholders.
Balance.
Work life.
Value.
Principles.
Team.
Members.
Purpose.
Life-driven life.
Fulfillment.
Happiness.
Favorite airport.
Oh boy. I'd say Vegas.
All right. Favorite hotel or resort.
Ooh, that's a tough one. I don't think I can pick on that one.
Well, let's say where you take your family, not so much business, but you know, for you to decompress, get away, enjoy a nice couple 3 days.
You know, I was just at the Confidant in Miami, so I'm gonna say there.
There you go. Reporters.
Valuable.
Good people.
Yeah, valuable. Yeah.
You did it with 31 seconds left on the clock.
All right.
Very good.
All right. I hope my answers were great.
Yeah, I liked them. It's again, it's just whatever pops into your head. There's no wrong answers here. So you're traveling, you're hitting the road, you're going to meetings. What's that experience been like for you just the past couple of weeks? Are you seeing that it's getting easier to travel? Are there more people that are still really uptight, creating issues? What are you seeing?
I think more and more people are traveling, which is great news. I haven't really had any issues traveling at all. You know, I wanted to travel from the beginning. I had no issues with traveling. Of course, it's a pain sitting on a flight for several hours wearing a mask, but we're all doing it because we want to get to where we want to go and enjoy ourselves and travel and experience things. But I think everything is good. I mean, from an industry, it seems like people are more optimistic. They want to get out there. They're willing to travel. They're seeing things go in the right direction, especially with a lot of these industry conferences. I'm seeing a lot of people, and it's really nice to see everybody's face again. I enjoy being, of course, doing the virtual thing, but it's it's a lot better to be in person with people and shaking hands. So I'm glad to be out there. And
good. Well, put March 10th down on your calendar. Come on out for the 5th annual California Lodging Investment Conference. So.
Sure, I will.
CJ, we are out of time. Shameless plug. How can everybody get a hold of you?
Everybody, you can reach me at cj@cjmediasolutionsllc.com, and I look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you for joining the conversation today, my friend. We'll have you back again soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Craig.
Thank you to our audience, but I have to thank our production partners. Without them, without you, we wouldn't have a show. So thank you very much, Red Roof Franchising and Chicago Title, National Commercial Services Group, California. Please let them know that producer Danny and I sent you, and they'd love to hear from you. So if you're thinking about a new brand, you're thinking that you need some help with getting your real estate transactions closed, both Red Roof Franchising and Chicago Title's National Commercial Services Group are there to help you, and they'd love to hear from you. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say it one more time. That's going to be a lot more than one more time. Hey, join me and CJ, Glenn Hausman. We've got 9 different brands coming aboard. We've got 6 different lenders. We've got all types of third-party professionals for one day focused on the California hotel market. The 5th Annual California Lodging Investment Conference on March 10th, 2022 at the crown jewel of the Anaheim Resort, the JW Marriott. You can register and find all the details at cliconference.com. Join us. It's one day of networking, great information, and you're just going to really be able to meet all the boots on the ground that you want to talk to. We've got all the franchise teams there. You're going to be able to meet the reps that are working the area and lenders that have been making loans and various other, professionals from Ambridge Hospitality and other management companies. So it's a full day event. We hope to see you there. Remember, be kind, share your knowledge, go be amazing.